Owl here, and today I'm going to talk to you guys about The Female of the Species by Mindy McGinnis. I read the audiobook of this novel, and I gotta say, I was thoroughly impressed by this book. I heard so many good things about it and its way of talking about rape culture and sexual assault, and how that really plays into small towns especially, and I gotta say, it did not disappoint in that regard. I think that there's a lot about this story that is very, very important to acknowledge, and a lot of things, especially within small towns, that need to be really looked at further, because coming from a girl that lived in a small town, this stuff is not really looked at very much. I gotta say though, my hometown is not known for things of that nature. I don't think we've had anyone that I know of that has been sexually assaulted or raped by someone from our small town. But it is still something that needs to be acknowledged and needs to be recognized, that this novel is absolutely important to anyone who lives in a small town. So to basically get into the plot of the story, it focuses on 3 separate characters that are all within the same small town and all kind of know each other. The first and most important character being this girl named Alex Kraft. Now, Alex has a very dark past because her older sister Anna, 3 years prior to this story, was raped and killed. Alex, unfortunately, becomes very, very dark after this moment, and basically the beginning of the story says, I know how to kill someone. And there's a lot about her that is kind of hinted at through this story about her life and her past and what she's done and what she continues to do since her sister's death. And a lot of it is very intriguing, but also incredibly problematic. She's a very morally gray character that I think is incredibly well developed despite the fact she is morally gray. I think that a lot of times characters that are morally gray are not really well developed, and you just know that they kind of are on the fence between good and bad. And I think that Alex honestly showcases a lot of great qualities, but is also hindered by some of her bad ones, and I think that it is very, very realistic in that sense, considering where she comes from and considering the things that she has experienced and the things that she has dealt with in her life. Then we have Jack Fisher, who is not only the smartest guy in their school, basically running neck and neck with Alex as valedictorian of their high school senior class. He also is incredibly athletic, and he's also incredibly tied up in this girl named Branley, who is like this girl that he basically just goes back and forth with, having sex a lot with, and has no repercussions of it. But that is until he really starts to get to know Alex a lot more. He does know her a lot from the past, but he never really interacts with her until the beginning of the story, when they find out that they're both going to be valedictorians of their school. And basically a friendship blossoms from there, and a very unlikely friendship for him, and he kind of can't seem to get her out of his head, which really is interesting, because he's such a morally great character in his own right, because he's so sex driven and he has sex all the time with this girl Branley, but he kind of struggles with that a lot when he starts to get to know Alex more and starts to fall for her, and you kind of root for him in a sense to pick Alex throughout the story. And I really enjoyed his character. I think that he developed so interestingly, because he really starts to focus on Alex as a person as opposed to a sexual object, which I think that shows a lot of character growth on his part, because coming from a place where he could have sex with this girl Branley anytime he wants, and then having to see that Alex is completely different from that, and he has to kind of work with her to be able to get anything that he wants from her, he actually decides that he doesn't want to have that, and he wants to just have Alex as who she is, which is really heartwarming, because you don't think that many guys like that would do that. But at the same time, I'm also kind of like, is that really how you're gonna be? I think that there were some things that in this novel, between these 2 characters specifically, were a little unrealistic in my mind, because it doesn't work like that in my small town. It does not work like that at all, but I think that I kind of let it slide because I was just too intrigued by their relationship. Then the final character we have is PK. Now, PK is not her real name. It's actually a nickname for Preacher's Kid, because she is the daughter of the local preacher in their town, and she's kind of been ridiculed for it because of that. She's not exactly bullied, but people really don't expect her to do a lot because she's the preacher's kid. And her story is basically when she meets Alex when they are working at the animal shelter together. She's really the one that brings Alex out of her shell the most before Alex really starts to get in touch with Jack. And I really loved this friendship between PK and Alex, because I think that they both really brought a lot of good out of each other throughout this friendship, and it actually reminds me a lot of my friendship with my best friend Erica, because it kind of was like they finally got to start knowing each other, and they really kind of found the best parts of each other and brought them out and really kind of made the other change in great ways. And I think that that's the best thing about developing friendships, is that you find things about each other that are great, and you bring them out of each other, and you make each other better people because of it. And I think PK, although she had her own problems, she would honestly put them all aside for Alex, which is such a great thing, but also can be really problematic in some sense. But I think that in this story, it focused more on just being there for her, especially since she's been through a lot. And Alex honestly does a lot for PK that I think is incredibly, incredibly amazing in their friendship. I can't say anything really without spoiling anything, but basically Alex is a lot for PK that I don't think she would ever be able to repay her for. But their friendship, I think, is enough for Alex, because Alex never really has any friends until this story begins. These three characters are also very, very different from each other, but also have a lot of things in common that I think is so important. This novel really focuses on a lot of different things and hits a lot of different topics within the ideas of rape culture and sexual assault, and especially when it comes to things that happen in small towns, because there's a whole scene where this cop comes into this assembly at their high school and says that basically one of the girls in this place is going to be sexually assaulted by somebody that they know, whether it's someone they go to school with or someone that they are acquainted with in some way, because it's a small town. And even guys can actually be sexually assaulted because of that as well. And I love that they actually mentioned males as well, because I think that is so underrated, is that the guys are never mentioned in terms of sexual assault. Males are also just as likely to experience sexual assault as women are. And I think that this novel really grabs a lot of these different kind of false idealizations of rape culture and sexual assault and really brings them to the table and expresses that anything can basically happen in any absolute way. It doesn't matter who you are or what color skin you have or what gender you are. Anyone is able to be sexually assaulted at any point in time, because somebody out there is going to think that they can take advantage of another person, and it is so clearly showcased within this story, and I absolutely love it. I love also how, like I said, how Jack really grows as a character from being this sexual objectifier by really having sex a lot with Branley and basically using her as a sexual object, and he really changes his mind about that throughout the story after having really gotten to know Alex and understanding kind of what he was doing in the past that he needs to change. And so I think this novel does a lot of great things in talking about that, and definitely is important for people who are in small towns that don't really understand a lot about rape culture and kind of the things that stem from it. It doesn't matter what you wear, it doesn't matter how you look, it doesn't matter if you've had sex multiple times, it doesn't matter if you've never had sex. It doesn't matter. Rape is not subjective to any singular person or idea or look of any kind. Rape can happen at any point in time, and I think this novel is just such a great way to explain that and really bring that home for a lot of people who think that it just matters what you wear or what you were doing, whether you were drinking or not, which is so stupid to me. I don't understand how people can think that just because you're drinking, you are automatically able to have consent to sexual relations. That is not, no. That just don't even get me started on that. The one thing that I will say, though, that I kind of had a problem with was this little bit of an insta-love thing that was going on between two of the characters, because it unfortunately was not something I was okay with. It just kind of seemed a little unrealistic at times, the way that this relationship was building. But overall, I liked the relationship in itself. I think it was a very healthy one. I think it ended up being really, really good for both characters, but I think that the start of it was not super realistic. I don't really think that it started out in the best way, but, you know, it's whatever. You know, I can't knock it down too much, but I did kind of mark some points off because of that, just because I don't think that the relationship was super realistic in the beginning, but overall did pretty well towards, like, the end of the novel. So basically with this book, I gave it a 4.5 out of 5 stars, closer to 5, excuse me, on Goodreads. It actually marked as a 5 because you can't do half-star ratings on Goodreads, but basically it's closer to a 5-star anyway for me. Probably more like a 4.75 because I really just didn't like the unrealistic beginning of the relationship, but I love the relationship as a whole, and I love this book so much because I think it's so good with talking about these topics that are so desperately needed to be discussed, especially in the larger scheme of things of talking about rape culture and sexual assault. Thank you guys so much for joining me in this review of The Female of the Species by Mindy McGinnis. Let me know if you guys have read this novel yourselves and what your thoughts were down in the comments below. If you enjoyed it, if you didn't, and maybe talk to me about what you thought as far as the conversation about rape and sexual assault and consent, whether or not you feel like it really talked about it in the way that it needed to be talked about. I thought so. I thought it was really well done, but everyone has their own opinion about things within this topic, so let me know what you guys thought about it. And if you guys did enjoy this video, please do give it a big thumbs up, and if you're not already and you'd like to be, hit that button down below and subscribe to become an owlet in our flock, and I will see all of you guys in my next video. Bye guys!